and we're about to sit down and go through the A8 video. I'm gonna basically talk you guys through it, and I can answer any questions live about what's happening on the screen and maybe some mechanics and phases themselves. I think I've got it set up here. Let's get rid of Saber. Okie dokie. Let's move this over there. Okay, we are good. All right, let me move my sandwich. Sorry if that's really loud, guys. So, we'll just go through the video like this. Tell me how the volume is for you guys. My voice versus the video volume versus the comms that are happening. If the volume's good, volume's kind of low? Okay. I'll raise it up. How's that? Let's put it on max. How's this? Test, 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 test. I'm gonna restart the video in a second. Let's do an audio test right now. Volume check. Okay, let's restart it. You're good? Okay, all right, we're gonna start now. Now that audio is all good. I'm gonna go through the first phase a bit, talk about what's happening. This is the Onslaughter phase. This is the first phase of the fight. You're fighting the fifth robot of the Goblin Combaticons. How do you get health to show on the boss? That's an ACT feature. So mechanics of this phase are fairly simple. There's a lot of Seed of the Skies. There's a Mega Beam that targets a random party member. It's a one-hit KO unless you're a tank, so you just move away from it. Execution is the cast bar that summons these 4 pentacles that you're seeing on your screen. These pentacles have to be killed within, I believe it's 20 seconds of spawning. If you don't clear them in 20 seconds, it's a pseudo enrage and they explode and wipe the raid. You can only have one person attacking a pentacle at a time. The person that's tethered is the only player that can attack it. So you split DPS 1 on each pentacle. Meanwhile, this is going on. If you guys are familiar with manipulator mechanics, there's the returning mechanic, Perpetual Ray. It's a mandatory tank swap because it puts a vuln on the first tank that it hits. So you treat it like secondary head from turn 11 if you guys are familiar with that. You taunt right after the vuln. So this is the mechanic that everyone has trouble with on Onslaughter for whatever reason. It's not hard to execute. However, it's hard to plan.
Next.
It's called legislation. What legislation does is it puts varying stacks of final sentence on party members. And I'm actually going to pause it before we go into the next phase because Onslaughter is about to phase. What the final sentence stacks do is 4 stacks go on one member, 3 stacks go on another, 2 stacks go on another, and 1 stack goes in the final DPS member. And it's always on 4. It's always on the 4 DPS players. If you do not clear your final sentence stacks before your final sentence debuff hits 0, you basically it's an illegal operation, and Onslaughter automatically kills you. It's an auto wipe to the party. So the goal is to have all of the final sentence stacks cleared before the debuff timer expires. And the way you clear a final sentence debuff stack is you take damage. That is how you clear final sentence. You have to take damage. Um, the way that the first phase is designed is there are discoid balls that spawn around the map, and you can use those discoid balls to take damage to cleanse your stacking debuffs. Um, the catch is that the discoid balls are tethered to certain players, and if you are tethered to a ball, you cannot take that ball, or it automatically kills you. If you're tethered to a ball, it explodes for like 30k or something on you, and you automatically die. And if you die when you have a final sentence, it auto cleans and wipes the raid. So you have to organize a system that uh, groups of players are taking discoid balls, but not the balls that they're tethered to. But also the bit of the mechanic that I didn't highlight yet is the more people that take a ball at the same time, the higher the damage is. If a single player takes a ball, it's like 6k damage. If you double stack the ball, it's somewhere like around 12k. Once you start triple stacking, you get into the 18k range. It's increasing at that rate. So you want to avoid triple stacking the discoid balls, and you want to keep it to double stacking if possible. Triple stacking is livable, and we do triple stack sometimes when we mess up. You just throw a sucker out, and maybe a tank LB if you have an LB at that point. You can get through it by triple stacking, but ideally the phase is designed so that you double stack the orange discoid balls in a way that uses the 5 balls in the map to clear all of the final sentence stacks in on your party. And in order to do so, we basically created teams. If I go back a bit, I'll highlight how we handle the mechanic. Let me go back to the beginning of when legislation is casted. So legislation is cast here. We have the 2 on Rin, the 4 on Fold, the 1 on Alice, and the 3 on Miyu. One of the simplest ways to handle this mechanic, unless you're wanting to do the hydrothermal cheese, which I'm not really going to advocate for because the hydrothermal cheese requires a lot of holding of DPS. At really high gear levels, and even at the gear levels now, you're pushing the phase so fast that you're not getting all the hydrothermals required for that strategy. So I'm going to preach for people doing it the discoid way, and I will continue to do so. If the hydrothermal way is a way that works great for your static, though, by all means. This is just something. It does not work very well for our team, but if it works well for your team, continue to do whatever works best for you. You should always do what works best for your team and not blindly copy another team. But for the discoid method, what we do is we have the evens. Essentially, we have a mantra: evens to 3, odds to 4. And now what this does is our strategy is designed so that it keeps teams together, and it's like a buddy system. You're always working with the same buddy to clear the balls. It keeps it very simple and streamlined that way. You're not thinking about like where I have to go next, who I'm going with. It's the same buddy not each time, but it's the same numbered buddy each time. So evens will always go to the 3 ball, and odds will always go to the 4 ball. And you'll see that play out. So Rin is a 2, so he's an even. So he's going to be going to the 3, and if you guys notice, the 3 is Muni. So Rin and Fold, the 2 evens, will be going to Muni.
It's Miyu, odds Fold.
And we'll see that play out here in a second. So they take Muni's ball. Now what happens here? Let's wait for both of the teams to finish their ball, and then we'll highlight what's happening. So both teams have gotten their ball. The 1 is now done. But you remember earlier that the players cannot take the balls they're tethered to. So the next team that works together is going to be the 2 players that weren't tethered. So if you're now not tethered, you're now teamed up with your partner who is also not tethered, and they're going to work together to take these 2 next balls.
Yep.
Now they take the 2 balls, and we purposely leave the healer ball for last. Now the purpose of the healer ball is once the buddy system is over, the 2 remaining stacks of 1 in the party are going to team up to take the final healer ball. So it becomes a checklist of 3 checks. You check if you're an even or an odd. That's the first check. The second check is, do I have a tether? And the third check is, do I have a stack of 1? Because if so, I need to go to the healer orb. Those are the only 3 checks you have to ask yourself to do the mechanic. It's a very simple to execute. Now we're into the ad phase. That's the full extent of on the Onslaughter phase. So now we're into the ad phase. This is what I was highlighting about earlier regarding the council fight. You'll see why when the phase starts to really get fleshed out. But as it stands right now, the phase starts with Blaster and Brawler, and they're doing mechanics that we're familiar with. They're doing there's no new mechanics in this phase. It's mechanics that you're familiar with from A6. The order in which they do them is different, but they behave the same way. The one thing that is a little different is at around 50%, when Blaster starts channeling the skill that has to be silenced. I forget the name of it. He spawns a Blaster Mirage, and you have to move that. The Mirage is tethered to Blaster, and while they're tethered, Blaster is invulnerable. So you have to separate the Mirage from Blaster, and you do that with a tank swap. You're not seeing it on Rin's screen right now, but to the right of Rin, I've moved the Mirage away, and I'm picking up Swindler, who has just now spawned. Swindler spawns around the time the Mirage spawns, so you do it in one fell swoop. You separate the Mirage from Blaster and pick up Swindler at the same time. It's one swift movement. This is the first check of the phase. You have to kill Blaster before Vortexer comes down. Otherwise, it's a wipe. It's just a DPS check. If it comes down, it's an illegal operation and an auto clean and rages. So Vortexer will be coming down sort of around the top left of your screen here at the B. He'll be spawning there in a second. There he is right there. You can see him. So the way that we do this phase is we have the non-brawler tank pick up Vortexer and Swindler and tank them outside of the green AoE circle that Brawler's channeling. If you guys remember from A6, you'll remember that the green AoE circle, anything inside of it gets at least an A8 gets a regen and a damage stack. So you want to avoid anything being in that green circle. What's different about this phase compared to A6 is when you push these robots to 50%, they do new mechanics. They essentially have a phasing at a 50% HP each time you get them to 50%, and this is true for essentially all 4 robots. So we push Brawler to 50%, and he starts the ball phase that you guys might remember from A6. Once the ball phase is going out, you have the 2 big blue balls, LOL. You have the 2 big balls heading to the center, and they explode on impact, and there's nothing you can do about it. You just have to mitigate and prepare. And then you also have the 2 green orbs that the tank has to pick up, and that's essentially the extent of the ball phase in this fight. But while that's going on, Brawler is not attackable. Well, he doesn't really take any damage. So we shift the DPS to Swindler and Vortexer at that time, and we start prepping them to 50%, while also dealing with the ball phase that Brawler is doing. So that's what you're looking at right now. Coming. You're hearing us call out the big ball explosions. We're calling out incoming, so we can mitigate properly. So this is the part that everyone's gonna make fun of us for. We misbaited a double drill mechanic. We're fine. The bait wasn't in the proper position. If you're familiar with double drill, you'll know that the double drill targets 2 players. It targets the player closest to Brawler, and it also targets the player farthest from Brawler. So you want to bait it on 2 players rather than have it be a random target. And we just misplayed the bait, so it hit all of our DPS. Once the ball phase is over, which it's over now, Brawler becomes attackable again, and he's sub 50%. So we want to erase him from the map, because if you guys remember Swindler, the Swindler mechanics from A6, the more mobs that are on the map, the more damage and invulnerability stacks Swindler has. He takes less damage the more mobs are on the map. So you want to erase Brawler from the map before you start caring about Swindler as best you can. because that just removes another mob from the map.
That's why you guys need to move off the wall during double draw.
So we're going to finish burning Brawler here, and then we're going to be left with 2 mobs. We're going to be left with Vortexer and Swindler.
Double. Easy. Do you highlight?
High-low.
You know, meanwhile, this is going on. We're doing high-lows and stuff, and
Push Swindler now.
So, Brawler has just died. We're approaching 50% on Swindler. The 50% phase mechanic that I was alluding to earlier for Swindler, just like Brawler's 50% phase mechanic was the ball phase, for Swindler, his is the bioarithmetics, big darkness damage AoE that he does in A6. It's just something you have to mitigate, to shield and prepare for. But you want to be very careful because Vortexer's 50% phase mechanic is Super Cyclone. And this is a Super Cyclone that's not like the A6 one. This one does 13,000 damage. So if you push both of these AoEs at the same time, you're dead. So you want to separate the pushes, and you want to time the pushes so that the following mechanics line up favorably. Once 50% hits for Swindler, Swindler starts doing enumerations as well. It's the new mechanic that he adds post 50%. Once you push past 50% on Vortexer, and he does Super Cyclone, he starts adding the fire missiles from A6, the ones that leave the puddle on the ground, and also Compressed Thunder. The way we have our push timed out, and Farhan is asking, why we do it the way we do. I'll explain. The reason we push the way we do is it separates the mechanics in a very favorable manner. What would be troublesome, guys? Let's think about it. Would it not be very troublesome if you're trying to do an enumeration at the same time the Seed of the Skies are happening? That sounds like a mess. So we set up our push timings to make it so that's never going to happen. And watch how the timings play out if you push Swindler and then push Vortexer about 5 to 10 seconds afterwards.
Vortexer's really high.
Yeah, a little one down.
So we're pushing Swindler right here. He just hit 50%. Here's the bioarithmetics. We'll top up and we'll push Super Cyclone right here.
He's pushing out.
There's the Super Cyclone. So after this green AoE, we're going to get an enumeration high-low. Right here.
2.
20 seconds after you push Vortexer, he does his Seeds of the Sky, which are happening right here. The enumeration and the seeds are separated entirely. There's multiple ways to do it, Farana. You just asked me why we do it the way we do it, and I'm detailing that.
Kill them. We have to make up time.
What I didn't highlight is after the seeds of the right before the Seeds of the Sky are cast, he put a compressed water on a player, and 10 seconds after the seeds happen, the compressed water explodes. So you'll see Miyuni and Sai over here that after we were done baiting the Seeds of the Sky AoEs, I know they're not called Seeds of the Sky, but that's just what I call the mechanic. You guys are just going to have to put up with me. After we're done baiting the Seeds of the Sky, the Compressed Thunder player goes one way and the rest of the party goes another way.
I mean,
the other mechanic that I didn't highlight is they have to be killed at the same time, because similarly to A1, when you kill one, the other one starts self-destructing. And that's that phase. I know there's a lot to talk about, but there's a lot going on in that. And you guys can kind of understand now why I call that Final Fantasy's first council encounter, because there was a lot of mechanics on each robot, and you're fighting them all at the same time. So now we're in the fun part. We're in the Brute Justice phase, and I'm gonna do very little talking for this. I'll talk about what happened. Was I saying water? I apologize if I was. It's compressed lightning, yes. I just apologize if I was saying water. But let's go through this Brute Justice phase. I'll talk about what happens afterwards. I just want to show you guys. Essentially, it's a big dance, and I'll go through our steps for the dance afterwards. we're gonna watch the video through its entirety,
We have it.
and we'll rewind and highlight what's happening afterwards. Oh, stop.
Auto.
Go.
Beam.
Reserve. My unit is
It's a little bit more than Dragon Kick, Sean. I'll talk about it in a minute. Dragon Kick doesn't do much when we have Delirium. This is one of the hardest parts of the fight. Right here, this intermission.
On the front.
Beam. Beam.
Good job.
Woohoo!
3.
4.
Alice run. Alice run.
The fuck, dude.
I know. That's the part that you guys are talking about. Here's everybody's favorite part. Achieve final form. It's like a light show, watch this.
You pop it.
You ready for it? I'm ready.
Alright.
Here we go. Oranges.
Damage values in this fight are just immense.
Wait for charge.
reserve.
Box to the front.
You're going left.
Grabbing mine. Look for safe.
Right here should be fine.
Okay.
I'm under
Middle,
3.
yeah.
This is the mechanic of the fight
Get away.
away that
Get away.
the teams skip
Watch
by
the
doing
move.
this
You
extra.
can't be, you cannot be in center, by the way. You have to bait
Can't
this
bait
guy.
it.
My
Baited
unit
on
is-
these.
It's on you.
Neo.
It's on you.
Mia.
This is the hardest 10 seconds of
That's
the
good.
fight.
That's good.
I'm okay, I'm okay.
Have a truck up here. Short needles into final punch.
Sure.
Snap his head.
Beam afterwards. Stack up, man. Stack up.
Big mitigation, big mitigation,
Stack.
big mitigation. Big burn, let's go. We have an LB3, pop it. Fuck.
LB.
In the
Stack
bubble,
tight,
in the
guys.
bubble, in the
Stack
bubble.
tight in the bubble.
For sure.
I won't have leaned on short.
Yeah, you should probably
What
just
about
put it
it's
on
fine,
as
it's
soon as
fine.
you can, dude.
Look at the ley lines at the
Run
bottom
out,
of the
like,
screen.
in the template.
Put up MP. MP's up.
Mantra.
Told you, not in the bubble.
Is bubble. Can we stuck in the back?
Come on guys, stack. Come on guys, stack. Stack up, stack up. Keep it up, stack up.
Truck up.
I
Keep it going,
shroud in
keep it going.
4 seconds.
We're going.
Keep it going. More heals,
Keep us
more
up,
heals.
keep us
More
up.
heals.
Shroud's
Everything you
up.
have here.
Shroud's up.
Get ready to
Everything.
LD, boss. Get ready to LD. I'm gonna
LB,
rock it.
everything you have. Everything you have.
Go.
I'm spam.
Come on!
Yes! Yeah! What the hell?
Oh man, finally.
Mispronouncing
Done,
Rashida.
fucking dead, guys. It's actually fucking dead.
Alright,
There's no fucking.
so that was the fight in its entirety. Let's go back and let's look at what actually was happening.
Oh my god. Was that the one swallow?
One shot.
Was that the one swallow?
Alright.
Oh my god, I can fucking Leroy, let's play BNS right now, dude.
Let's play BNS right now!
Dude, I'm so excited to play any other game right now.
Oh my god, it's so funny. Okay, let's go back and let's look at that fight. Where does Free Justice start? Okay. I think it's right about here. Alright. So, let me answer these questions real quick before we start. First time you guys saw this, did you just spread out or something anticipating a big attack? The first time we saw it, yeah, we did not do any attacking. We sort of like half the party ran to the edge, half the party started hitting the boss. The first time we saw it, we got it to about 20-something%. Once we realized, like, oh my god, he's just continuing to spin. Kill him. But what you guys will pick up on, and I'll talk about it when we get to it in the video, is every 5 seconds he's casting J-Wave, which is the AoE that's hitting the party. And every J-Wave, the following J-Wave does more damage. It's increasing in about it's increasing exponentially as time goes on. And it starts out as small increments of around 600 to 800 damage, and eventually gets to a point where it's increasing by 2,000 damage each time. But we'll talk about that when we get to it. Let's focus on mini Brute Justice for now.
Time to release.
Like 10 seconds.
So the first mechanic of Brute Justice is the Flamethrower Double Punch combo. The Double Punch is a mechanic that basically you can split between two members. You split it by stacking the two members on top of each other. So you'll see myself and Vox stacked for Double Punch. Does a lot of damage. If you die to Double Punch, it's worth noting that it gives the boss a permanent stack, and you're not going to get through the final phase with that. So directly following Double Punch, he's going to go into a Short Needle, Long Needle combination. Short Needles, I don't know if they exist in normal. I don't think they do. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. I've only done normal once, and it was just to unlock Savage. Short Needles are a reoccurring 2,000 to 3,000 damage AoE that's hitting the party every few seconds while you're doing a dance for Long Needles. The Long Needle dance, and you'll watch it play out here, is there is think of a Dragon's Rage from Thornton, and there's also two prays. And what you want to do is what's going to happen is a Long Needle is going to hit each prey target for around 16,000 damage or so, unmitigated in this rotation. And there's also going to be a Long Needle hitting the Dragon's Rage stack for, I believe, around 80,000 damage in this rotation, split between everyone hit. I believe it's around 80,000 in this rotation. So what you do to do this dance is, and this is good that Rin got a prey here because I don't think he gets a prey on the next one, so you can see both sides of it. You separate the preys, and we have a very predetermined way for separating them. The way we have it set up is we separate them so that nobody's on the north side of the map. We separate them on the west, east, and south positions because of the following mega beam that's about to happen. You'll see this big explosion that happens from the long needles. You can't fucking see a damn thing. You can't see anything that's happening with the boss. The boss is about to do is the boss is about to pick a random party member as a target for a mega beam, and it's very hard to tell which direction he's facing. So what we do is we make sure that no party member is on the north side of the map, so that as soon as the mega beam starts channeling, you can always move to the north and always be safe because there's never going to be a mega beam there, which is what happens. He blindly moves to the north knowing that there's never going to be a mega beam there. Directly following the mega beam shenanigans is a super jump, and the super jump always targets the party member farthest away from the boss. The positional updating check, the positional check is actually done during the mega beam. It's important to highlight. So you want to make sure that your bait is farthest away during mega beam and no later. A lot of teams we've seen are using their off tank to bait super jump. We prefer using our black mage because it gets the black mage a ton of uptime because what you're going to see play out. Watch this play out. He super jumps on the black mage, and then directly following super jump, he picks a party member to cast to channel Apocalyptic Ray on. Now, think about how this plays out, guys. If you have your black mage on one side of the boss and the other 7 players on the other side of the boss, you have a 1 in 8 chance that the Apocalyptic Ray is going to be facing a direction that's going to hit your black mage. You have a 7 out of 8 chance that it's going to be facing a way that it's not hitting your black mage. And that means you have a 7 out of 8 chance that your black mage doesn't have to move. So we love having a black mage bait. Once the Apocalyptic Ray finishes casting, he's going to start his second part of the cycle, where it's a flamethrower, double punch, flamethrower combination. It's the same thing. You mitigate the flamethrower and then stack for the double punch. And this is the same dance. Now this is a nice illustration because Rin no longer has a prey, so you can get to see what it looks like when you don't have a prey. You'll notice that there's seeds of the sky dropping. Coincidentally, those seeds of the sky are just also called long needles. If you get hit, it's a 20,000 long needle damage. There's 2 sets of seeds that happen. So we want to bait them in specific areas. We bait one on the right flank, then we bait one on the south, and then we end our stack on the left flank. And then we move to the north blindly because we know that the Mega Beam's never going to be north. And then he follows up the Mega Beam with a super jump just like before. So now we're going into the first intermission part of the fight. This is a very simple dance. He opens every intermission with a J kick, and J kick is just a lot of damage. It's darkness damage. It's just a lot of damage. Just shield it, and maybe if you're lucky, you can get a reprisal up on the boss before he does it. Even though he's not targetable, it still affects the damage. So the first part of this intermission, if you guys remember, is there's going to be Onslaughter coming down in the middle of the room, and he's going to do damage based on your distance from him. So you want to be decently far away. I actually will talk about this afterwards, Ferrana, but darkness damage is actually very healthy for the state of the game, but we'll talk about that later. There's a couple of different ways you can do this intermission. You can do it like we do it, or you can bait it into a corner. Both are very fine. We prefer doing it this way just because it's how we did it, and it's very intuitive for us. Onslaughter is going to come down in the middle of the map, and at the same time Onslaughter is coming down, 4 Blaster Mirages are picked. If you remember from A6, these Mirages do a lot of damage when they drop, and you don't want to cleave people. So what we do is we keep the non-miraged players at A in the center of the wall, and we spread the Mirages out on the wall.
Okay.
This is a little dangerous. Vana and Rin almost clipped each other. What happens after Blaster Mirages drop is they're going to target party members and then charge to them. So we bait the charges on a line parallel to A, the A wall. And after we bait them, we then move to C to stack for the double beam. So Brawler's doing his double beam here. Right after this double beam, Onslaughter picks a target for Mega Beam. While you're dodging this Mega Beam, you also need to be looking at the chakrams on the map. These chakrams span in somewhat random positions. However, there is a very specific set of rules that they follow. And I will, now that the fight is completely public, I will talk about the chakram rules. Chakrams can only be on walls that are perpendicular to each other, and it's always 2 chakrams per wall. Chakrams follow those 2 very specific set of rules. And it's very important to understand that when you're trying to navigate the final phase. They're essentially chakram dive bombs. Once you deal with the Mega Beam chakram dive bombs, you then have the second half of the intermission, which is the high-low Shiva and Pepperoni Circle combination. You essentially find your correct pad, deal with the fact that you have if you have a Shiva, you can't get targeted by a Pepperoni. If you don't have a Shiva, you're going to get Pepperonied. During all of this, he's going to pick a party member to target with a Mega Beam, and during that Mega Beam, the person that had aggro from Brawler a few phases ago is going to be hit by a single Buster. So because we know that the Brawler aggro is going to be on Vox or Dark Knight, we assign quadrants for each player, and we assigned the Dark Knight to be in the southernmost quadrant, so that the single Buster you can see is it's going to the wall. It's not dangerously attacking anyone. That might be true for Ana. I'll have to verify that. But to my knowledge, we've had that not be correct. But I will verify that. I will concede that I could be incorrect on that. So let me backtrack a little bit. Let's talk about what's happening here. What's interesting? So we're now leaving intermission 1. And we're going into the second part of the mini Brute Justice phase. And what's happening here is it's essentially a repeat of the first rotation. However, he's doing more damage now. You might remember that I said that the long needle praise were doing about 16k unmitigated before, and now they're doing about somewhere around 18k unmitigated. And the long needle rage stack is now doing 120,000 as opposed to 80,000. So you're splitting 120,000 between 6 players. You need a lot of mitigation to live through that. One of the ways that we live through it, and I think we stuck to this. No, we actually changed this because we moved our deploy. One of the ways that we used to deal with it is we used to set up EOS at the southern position of the boss and deploy off of EOS. But we no longer were able to do that once we decided that we wanted to deploy elsewhere. So we just cool down dump this one, and this is one of the reasons people have been asking why we want Monk. This is one of the reasons we chose to run Monk. 20% Mantra helps us get through this, while still saving cooldowns for other parts of the fight where we want them. If that's true for Ana, then I concede that I was incorrect about that. We have our Dark Knight tank both, so I guess I wouldn't be privy to that. So we're going through the motions here. You'll notice that everything's just doing more damage. The goal is to only get 1 long needle prey. You really don't have the cooldowns to deal with 2 while also dealing with the rest of the fight. You can have cooldowns that will get you through both. However, you're then pretty weak for the rest of the fight. So the goal is to skip the second long needle prey, and you skip it by just phasing him to 0%. Now we're starting what we feel is one of the hardest parts of the fight. In my eyes, it's the second hardest dance of the fight. It's the second intermission, and this is the part where I imagine that I'm speaking for many, many, many teams when I say that most of your progression deaths happen in this next 30 seconds.
Never mind.
Beam. So let me backtrack a little bit. I was sort of thinking about what I wanted to highlight. It's really important that I highlight what's happening here. I guess actually the easiest way for me to explain what's happening is I'll play through the intermission once, and then we'll go back and talk about it.
Never mind.
Try and follow along with everything that's happening. Oh, yeah, okay, so Rin, you didn't get picked for this. I might actually, to be honest, guys, I might open up, I'm going to watch what happens to Rin. If he doesn't get picked for any mechanics, I might open up a different video so I can show you guys what's happening if you actually get picked for the mechanics, because it's a nightmare. Okay, you did get picked for a Blaster Mirage here, so that, I mean, that's something. It's not the hard part, but it's something. Good job.
Woohoo!
3.
4.
Alice run. Alice run.
Fuck, dude.
I know. I think Sai got picked. Okay, alright. Well, before we get into Wing Justice, let's go back and let's talk about what's happening. So I'll go through what happens, and then maybe I'll open up another video. If Sai got picked, I don't have a Sai POV, so I can't show directly, but okay, there we go. Fixed. No more problems, correct? I wasn't even playing the video. I was just, I had it on pause. So nothing's happened yet, guys. It's still Onslaughter sitting right here. Alright. We're good. Moving on. Onslaughter's going to drop. We're setting up a Convalescence Mantra deploy off of a Defiance Warrior. Why do we care? It's because there's 2 mechanics that are in the lineup. The Blaster Mirage, which is going to drop and do 12,000 damage to the player it hits. And then Brawler is going to pick a target for a single drill. It's a random target. To our knowledge, there is no way you can manipulate the target that it chooses. The only thing you can manipulate is your distance from Brawler to reduce the damage. These happen within 0.5 to 1 second of each other. So you have a 12k Mirage hitting you, and then a maximum of 1 second later, you have an 8,000 damage single drill hitting you. That's 20,000 damage. To my knowledge, that is more HP than 6 out of 8 party members in our party have. So what we have to do is the only way outside of a very precise indom or a size or medica timing of healing in between the 2 mechanics, the simpler way of dealing with them is pre-shielding the Mirages so much that even if you get a Mirage in a single drill, you're going to live. And that was our methodology for getting through this. And that's why we put so much stock into shielding for these Mirages. We keep everyone tightly stacked until the deploy, and then we spread out to our assigned quadrants. Now, what the people in chat were talking about was Rin-chan doesn't get picked for the single drill. Sai does, so that's why we switched to Sai's POV here. Before that's happening, though, I didn't really highlight this. There are 4 mines that are popping on the map. You have 2 hidden and 2 visible. We use a Dark Knight with Living Dead to clear out the 2 hidden mines. They behave in the same way as A6 mines. If you don't clear the hidden mines, they explode after a certain period of time and wipe you. The visible mines you just have to, avoid. And they're random outside of the fact that hidden mines will always spawn in the 4 center squares, and the visible mines will always spawn on the outer set of squares. During this, there's also a double drill. If you remember the double drill mechanics, you bait it by using a close player and a far player. We choose to have Vox bait the close one and Miyu bait the far one. The reasoning for this is because Miyu can just ward the double drill and then mana wall the single drill. So he actually doesn't need to be in range for the deploy shenanigans that we're doing, because he's going to live regardless of deploy because he has mana wall for the single drill. Beam. In conjunction with all the shielding we're doing, we'll also have all of our DPS running, all the physical defense they can. We had Keen Flurries, Foresights. We had everything. We had everything you can possibly have to survive this single drill. So you'll notice that the Mirages are going out here. This is a little fortunate for Sai because he didn't get terrible RNG of getting a Mirage plus a single drill. But you'll see the single drill timing, and that's what I wanted to use Sai's POV to show. So watch Vana's Mirage to the left here drop, and watch it in relation to when the single drill hits Sai, because that's what you want to be looking for. You'll see the single drill channeling, Mirage drop,
Beam.
single drill hits. It's almost instantaneous. It's at max 1 second apart, but I think it's even less than a second. It's like half a second apart. After this, it's just a game of dodging Chakram dive bombs, dodging Mega Beam, and doing your blinder correct.
Good job.
Once you navigate that, you then have an Ultra Flash enumeration combo. This Ultra Flash is a little interesting in the sense that there's no frozen tornado. The only thing on the map you use is actually Onslaughter's big penis legs. We separate the enumerations into on 2 different legs. We always have the tank enumeration on the north leg and the healer enumeration on the south leg.
Alice run. Alice run.
What the fuck, dude?
I know.
So that's the second intermission. In my opinion, it's the second hardest part of the fight by far. Now we're going into the final phase. I'm gonna go back to Rin's POV because it has the music and stuff.
Good job.
3.
4.
Alice run. Alice run.
What the fuck, dude?
I know. I know.
So here's everyone's favorite phase. You'll notice that we pooled our LB for this phase. This is the phase that caused the most problems. So we want to. It's essentially a massive burn, and the other phases you're doing a lot of holding of DPS anyway. So there's no point to LB any earlier than this final phase. We timed the LB so that it starts channeling when he's 0%, but finishes channeling right when he heals. So the damage lands right after he heals. Verdict is a very interesting mechanic that's going to take me some time to explain to you guys. Let me take my jacket off before we get into this. This is a very fascinating mechanic. I'll just throw that on a chair over there. So you'll notice that when Verdict finished casting, there's a ton of debuffs that just went on the party. We've got final sentence stacks all over everybody. There's a ton of shit on the map. There's discoid balls, there's pentacles, there's fucking tornadoes. Like, we haven't even seen those before. What do those do? Let's get into what's actually happening here. Let me see if I can get this a little higher resolution so you guys can get a clearer shot of the actual debuffs themselves. Doesn't look like it's gonna happen, does it? I want to get them instantaneously after spawning so you can see. Okay, this is as good as it's gonna get. So the way that this mechanic functions is it places final sentence debuffs, final sentence stacks on very specific players. The 2 tanks are always going to receive 4 stacks of final sentence. The 2 healers are always going to receive one healer is going to receive 1 stack, and the other healer is going to receive 3 stacks. 2 of the DPS are going to receive 1 stack, and the remaining 2 DPS are going to receive 2 stacks. That set of rules is always going to be true. Now there are debuffs that you guys are not familiar with on the party list, and those are what make this part really interesting. You'll notice, if you can see, on our Scholar there is a blue 1, and then on our White Mage there's a green 2. On the 4 DPS players, you have, if you remember from Onslaughter's phase, you have a Pentacle debuff, you have a blue Pentacle debuff, and you have an orange Pentacle debuff. or red if you want to call it red, sure. I'm going to call it orange. You have blue pentacle and orange pentacle. The players who do not have pentacle debuffs have a set of orange 3s. Now, the two players with pentacle debuffs, those are the players that are assigned to killing the pentacles on the map. You can only kill the pentacle if you have those debuffs. The blue goes with the blue and the orange goes with the orange. The remaining debuffs, the ones I didn't talk about, by the way, there's 2 tank debuffs here. One of these is a minimum HP, and the other one is a maximum HP. The interesting part of this phase, though, is the 1, 2, and the 3. The blue 1, the green 2, and the orange 3. What these debuffs are actually doing is at the end of this verdict phase, he's going to cast a skill called Gavel. And a gavel is when he sentences you. You're required to serve out your sentence by the time gavel is cast. And the 1, 2, and 3 are the sentencing you're required to serve if you have those debuffs. The blue 1, his sentence requires him to end the verdict phase with 1 enfeeble. The green 2 requires you to end the phase with 2 enfeebles on you. And the orange 3 requires you to end the phase with 3 enfeebles on you. And the interesting part, and the only way that this phase actually mathematically makes sense, is that the debuffs themselves count as an enfeeble. So the blue 1, that counts as the enfeeble. Or debuff, if you're, if you prefer that term. So if you understand what I said correctly, then you'll understand that means that our scholar in this situation needs to end this phase with the blue 1 being the only debuff he has. And what does that mean? That means he needs to get rid of his 3 final sentence stacks. Otherwise, he's going to be ending the phase with 2 debuffs, and that's an auto wipe. That means you're not serving your sentence properly, and it's a legal operation and kills you. That means that our white mage needs to end the phase with 2 debuffs. He needs to end the phase with a green 2, with a green 2 plus an extra debuff. The orange 3, if you're following the pattern, that means they need to end the phase with 3 enfeebles. Now, in conjunction with all of this, we also need to be doing the mechanics on the map in a way that satisfies those verdict conditions while also removing shit from the map. There's 4. I'm going to let this play out a bit. There's 4 tornadoes you can see, and they spawn they spawn in corners of the room. And if you don't clear these tornadoes from the map, after a certain period of time, I believe it's 30 seconds, maybe, I could be wrong, don't quote me, might be 40 even, they will explode and do hurricane force, and it's just a wipe. So your goal is to clear the map of all the things that are going to explode while also doing it in a way that satisfies the verdict sentencing conditions. So that means very specific players are going to be doing very specific things so that their final sentence debuffs are removed and placed and removed down to a point that satisfies their sentence. And that's the very interesting part of this phase. The one thing I didn't talk about was the minimum HP, maximum HP on the tanks. Essentially, if you have a minimum HP debuff, it means that at the time of gavel casting, your sentence requires you to have the least HP in the party. If you have a maximum HP debuff, your sentencing requires you to have the highest HP in the party at the time of gavel cast. So what we're going to do is, and this is why it was really funny to me when people were talking about, like, oh, is the Onslaughter removing final sentence stacks with hydrothermal, is that a bug or is that intended? It was funny to us because we couldn't comment on it, because the only way you get through this is understanding that principle, understanding that any bit of damage removes final sentence stacks. And the reason that the Onslaughter hydrothermal stuff is not a bug and it's intended is because of this phase right here. The only way the tanks are able to remove their final sentence stacks is by getting auto-attacked by the boss. Any other way you remove those stacks off the tank, you're removing ways for the rest of the party to remove their stacks, and you remove so much that they don't have enough ways to remove their stacks to end the phase with the correct sentencing requirements. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be Vox is going to be getting auto attacked until he has his stacks cleared, and then I'm going to provoke and get my stacks cleared with the rest of the remaining auto attacks. We want to work out our provokes so that the maximum HP boss is always the one maximum HP tank is always the one tanking the boss at gavel cast, and the minimum HP tank is always the one off tanking the boss at gavel. Because while he's channeling gavel, he's not auto attacking, so it's very easy to top that tank and get him full HP for his sentence, and it's very easy for the off tank to serve out his sentencing, because the one thing I didn't mention is that when you run into a tornado, it deletes that tornado and also puts you around 1 HP. So it's very easy for the off tank who has the minimum HP debuff to become the lowest HP party member if he runs into the tornado at the last second. You want to do it at the last second because you don't want Scholar of Fairies Embrace healing you up and accidentally healing you and putting you in a spot where you're not the lowest HP party member. So that you'll see Sai and Miyu right now. I was just highlighting the fact that when you go into a tornado, it brings you down to 1 HP. They've cleared tornadoes, so that we're gonna have the healer who doesn't have blue clear a tornado, because clearing a tornado also deletes it, but it also gives you a debuff. It gives you I think it's Gale Force, the debuff it gives you, and that debuff will count as a debuff that we'll use to satisfy the gavel condition at the gavel cast. So Sai right now, his condition is met. He has a green 2, which means he needs to end the phase with 2 debuffs, and he has 2 debuffs. He has the green 2 as 1 debuff, and then the second debuff he has is Gale Force, which he got from taking the tornado. He also removed his final sentence stack by taking damage from the tornado. So that's by design. He's saved himself from dying to a final sentence later, and he's also done so in a manner that allows him to be ready for the gavel cast. His sentence is served. Vana's sentence still needs to be served out. He still has 2 remaining final sentence debuffs, and he's going to do this by taking the orange discoid bowls in the map. The players with 3, how are they going to serve their sentence? Well, the easiest way for them to serve their sentence is there's 4 tornadoes. The healer just took 1. The off tank's going to take the other one, so there's 2 tornadoes left. Those 2 tornadoes are reserved for the DPSs who have the orange 3, because what's going to happen? They're going to run into the tornado. Look at Mia right now. He's already done it. He ran into the tornado. He removed one of his final sentence debuffs, so he still has the final sentence, and he also has a 3rd debuff now of the Gale Force. So he has 3 debuffs. He is ready for gavel. He doesn't need or want to remove that final sentence until after gavel. Once gavel has finished, he'll remove the last final sentence so that he doesn't auto clean and wipe the raid to the final sentence mechanic. Fold just did the same. He's now set for his gavel condition. He has 3 debuffs. The remaining things that need to be served are we need Vana to finish his. He needs to get rid of the 2 final sentences, but he can't finish his 2 until the Pinnacle players are done. Because what's going to happen is watch what happens. Rin will play out what I'm about to highlight. Rin's going to do his Pinnacle, and then as soon as he's done his Pinnacle, he's going to go north and he's going to meet Vana. You'll see Alice doing it right now. They're going to double stack this orange ball to get rid of the final sentence. Now if you look at Vana, he's removed his final sentence down to 1 remaining stack, and Alice is clean. Alice has no more final sentence, and he doesn't have any more gavel condition because he doesn't have a 1, 2, or 3. So Alice is done. He's set.
The default. I'm ready.
Now Vana's going to work with the final remaining orange ball to work with Rin to remove Rin's final sentence. Rin has 16 seconds, you can see up at the top of the screen, before his final sentence goes off, so there's plenty of time. Now if you look at the party list, everyone but the orange 3s is clear of their final sentence. Let's look at the gavel conditions. You see gavel starting to cast. I'm going to wait till I run into the tornado. I'm the off tank. I clear the last tornado. What do we have, guys? Or no, Vox clears it. Sorry, I'm tanking. What do we have? We have all 4 tornadoes off the map. Are our gavel conditions satisfied? Let's take a look. I have the max HP buff. I have the highest HP in the party. I'm 28k right now. Vox has the minimum HP debuff. He has the lowest HP in the party. so he's good for Gavel. The green 2, does it have 2 debuffs? It has 1, 2. Yes, it's good. The blue 1, does it have 1 debuff? Yes. The orange 3s, do they have 3 debuffs? They have 1, 2, 3. They're good. Mew, does he have 3 debuffs? 1, 2, 3. They're good. All the Gavel conditions are met. The Pinnacle players do not have any Gavel conditions. The only condition they must satisfy is they must kill their Pinnacle in the time required. We have an issue, though, of in about 12 seconds or so, these final sentences are going to hit 0. And what happens when a final sentence hits 0? When a final sentence hits 0, if you remember from phase 1, it's an auto wipe. Luckily for us, we've designed it so that there is 1 orange ball remaining. This orange ball is saved for post-Gavel cleanup. Once Gavel finishes, if everyone has done their sentencing properly, no one should take any damage, and it's not a wipe.
Here we go.
We're good. There was no damage. Now that Gavel is done, and the Fold and Mew no longer have to serve a 3 debuff sentence, they're free to clear their final sentence debuff. So Fold and Mew are going to work together to take that last orange ball. We're good. All of the final sentences are off the map. All of the mechanics that can wipe us are off the map. The tornadoes are gone. The Pentacles are gone. The Discoid Balls are gone. Everything is gravy. We are now entering the beginning of the final phase rotation. The Gavel is the start of the final phase, but it's not the start of the rotation. We're now entering the first part of the rotation, which opens with a J kick.
Bubble.
Trick. Wait for Trick.
Before we get into this final phase, I want to talk about how cool of a mechanic Gavel was in Square's designing. It's one of those things where it's really, really, really cool to learn and progress through. However, once you learn it, it's very simple to actually execute. But it was really fun to like try to dissect and plan it out, like who's going where, when, how are we satisfying this mechanic. Yeah, like they're talking about in chat, Vana was a god. He dissected it with us really quickly. He's, you know, it was just really, really cool. Hey, what's up, Vana? We're talking about Gavel, and we were just highlighting how quickly you figured out Gavel. So the beginning of the rotation is actually link up. What link up does is it's just like the name implies. He links up the 5 robots, and he gains abilities from all 5 robots. And in this final phase, he uses abilities from all 5 robots. The first ability that he uses when he casts Link Up, you'll notice here, is this blue debuff that everyone's favorite debuff, Compress Water. Oh my boy, my favorite. I love that debuff. And this is also the mechanic that's going to cause the most controversy over the next couple weeks. And it's very unfortunate because this mechanic actually is entirely skippable, and I'll highlight why later in the fight. We felt that the skipping the mechanic netted us less potential DPS. However, it simplifies the phase immensely, and it's very annoying that it's skippable, because what it means is once groups are more geared and the DPS check of this phase doesn't matter anymore, it's by far going to be the preferred method for pugs and stuff, because it removes, in my eyes, the hardest part of the fight. And it's really unfortunate that once again a silly oversight from the design team has dumbed down the most difficult part of the fight. But that happens, and they're not perfect. I'm not going to ask them to be perfect. I will, however, sit here and say that it's extremely unfortunate. But let's focus on how we did the fight and highlight how the mechanic is supposed to play out. The one thing I will say is that at least at current gear levels, if you do the mechanic properly, you will have higher DPS. It's a result of the fact of carrying a weakness for a portion of the fight is not. It's not really you'll have higher DPS. You'll have very comparable DPS, I should say. But we'll get to that in a minute. So what just happened there? You saw that there was a final punch mechanic. That's new, right? Let's go back to the link up cast.
Trick. Like for try. Berserk.
So this final punch casting, everything in this phase, by the way, is final. Final punch, final beam, final ray. It's just the naming theme in this phase. Final punch behaves a little differently than double punch, though. It is a cleave, just like double punch. However, you don't want to double soak this one. It doesn't. The way you want to deal with this is you want to single tank it. However, provoke mid cast, because what final punch does is it knocks the main tank back. It does a bunch of damage and knocks the main tank back. I can't talk. It does a ton of damage and knocks the main tank back, and then immediately follows it up with a final ray. You want to avoid the final ray going into the main tank if possible. You don't have to, because final ray ticks, it's only about 3k ticks, but it's senseless healing. So what we do is we actually have the off tank standing on the side and provoke during final punch. You'll see why what plays out here. He final punches the main tank, knocks them back, and then faces the off tank with the ray. So now the ray is going to the side and it's not hitting anyone. Directly after final ray, he's going to do a final beam, which is a party soak mechanic. It splits the damage based on how many people it's hitting, and it does a little bit of a knockback. So we just have it hit everyone in the back of the party. It always targets the main tank, so we have the main tank stack with the party. Now we have what I was highlighting earlier, which is the it's honestly the hardest 10 seconds of the fight, really. And it starts here with this dance. There's a hidden mine spawning here, and there's also going to be a long needle set. If you remember long needles from earlier, there's a rage and 2 praise. But we have an issue now. There's a hidden mine potentially in our way of our dance. So what we do is we wait for the hidden mine to spawn, and then we choose left or right based on where the mine spawned, because the mine doesn't arm until after the seeds appear. So we sit there and wait for the seeds to appear, wait for the mine to arm, and then we move left or right depending on where the mine was. So in this instance, we're going to move left.
You're going left.
So we wait for the seeds have appeared, now we're going to move left. We'll stack on the left flank. It's important to note that the main tank actually can't stack with this one because there's a flamethrower going on at the same time. You'll see right there. Let's keep the sack salt out of the chat for now. It's the fact that it exists is unfortunate. However, I'm not going to sit here and punish groups that use it. If it's it's their choice, and it's not their fault it exists. It's the fault of design of the fight. We didn't prefer it. There will be many groups that do prefer it, but let's not worry about that for now. Let's focus on what is actually supposed to be happening. So this long needle hurts quite a bit. Because you're restricted to splitting it with 5 party members. This long needle, I believe, does, and somebody can correct me from my team if I'm wrong, I believe this long needle is an 120k split, or am I incorrect? 120k sounds like so much for a 5-person stack, but I can't remember. I feel like 120k is too much. Does anyone in my team remember how much a long needle split this stack is? I can't remember. Anyway, it's a lot of damage, and you have to split it between 5 party members because you have the main tank taking a flamethrower, and you have the 2 praise that can't stack. Is it actually 120k? Yeah, that's what I thought. It's a lot of fucking damage. Oh, that's counting the praise. I'm not counting the praise. I'm talking about just this rage. So just the rage stack. How much damage is that split 5 ways? That's what I'm wondering. It's around like 95k, isn't it? I think it's around 95k for the rage, but I could be wrong. Bottom line is anything lower than 5 is death. So what we did is we have the 5 players stack, and then we remember that hidden mine. We have to clear that hidden mine before it explodes because it behaves like every other hidden mine in the game. So as soon as the off tank is done taking the prey, I'm going to leave the stack, and you'll see me as the 2 there. I'm going to run over and grab that hidden mine.
Look for safe.
Now here is the hardest 10 seconds of the fight, right here. You'll notice, and we'll see if you'll see if right here there are 4 chakrams spawning on the edges. We also have a compressed water exploding in about 6 seconds. This compressed water does 150,000 damage. Let me repeat that. This compressed water does 150,000 damage. Did you guys catch that? I hope so. Let's split 150,000 8 ways. 18.75 thousand damage. Let's split 150k 7 ways. 21.5 thousand damage. Well, seems to me you need 8 people to stack. Oh, but there's a catch, guys. Let's watch what also happens before we have to stack for this compressed water.
Right here should be fine.
There is a fucking enumeration. Let's look at this. We have 4 chakrams. We have 150,000 damage compressed water. And we have an enumeration that can be anywhere from 2, 3, or 4. I can't help but laugh at this. This is the biggest amount of mechanic vomit I've seen in an MMO. And I've done a lot of raiding. This is so much happening in a span of 5 seconds. It was unreal. So let's look at how this plays out. Enumeration's a big fucking circle. You can see that, right? Compressed water is also a big circle. It's a little bit smaller than that soil that we have laid down. The only way you can deal with this mechanic simply while satisfying everything without sacking is you have to move the boss to a safe spot for chakrams. You have to place the enumeration inside the center of the boss with the water. Well, you don't have to, but this is the simplest way of doing it. You place the enumeration in the center of the boss. You put the water inside the enumeration. The water explosion hitbox is bigger than the enumeration by a little bit, not by much, but by a little bit. You have all of the players that are not supposed to take the enumeration tightly surrounding the enumeration circle, so that they're still getting hit by the compressed water inside the center of the enumeration. And we'll see that play out here in a second. Because this is the 3, this is going to be myself, the compressed water, and one of the healers. Those are the only 3 people that should be inside the circle. The remaining 5 players should be tightly hugged around the center of the around the circle of the enumeration.
I'm under 3.
You'll see Rin is tightly stacked to the side of it.
Get away from the tornado.
At the same time, let me play that back, guys. We have chakrams flying off the map at the same time the water is exploding.
Get away from.
Let me see if I can get a frame perfect stop. Okay, well that's as good as I can get. These are chakrams flying by. Water's exploding right here.
Get away.
This is the 8-player stack. Look at these HP values. This is an 8-player stack. Look at these fucking HP values. Miyu has 1600 HP. This is fucking bonkers, okay?
Away.
This is the hardest 10 seconds I've done in raiding. Also, what happens after you spawn a tornado? You have to move away because in 5 seconds drainage tethers are about to trigger.
Watch the beam.
Can't be.
Also, while you're moving away from the tornado, and we tried many different methods, guys. Obviously, you're losing a ton of uptime here, and this is the #1 argument for sacking. And I'll highlight the sacking once I'm done. But the #1 argument for sacking is you are required to move away from the boss because the boss stops to channel a Mega Beam and doesn't move with you. So he sits there AFKing at that fucking tornado that you can't stand next to. If you stand next to the boss right now, you're going to get drainage tethered. There's no simple way, even if you're on the complete opposite side of the hitbox, there's no real safe way of not getting drainaged. So we just opted to grit our teeth and suck it up and run away from the boss and sacrifice the uptime. It killed us. It killed our souls to have to do that, but it was the only way of safely dealing with drainage. So directly after the drainage tornado spawns, he channels a Mega Beam.
Cannot be incentive.
After this Mega Beam, he's going to super jump away.
Baited on beats.
It's
on
me.
me.
Now, how does every tornado behave in A6? The way that the tornado behaves in A6, if you don't get a tornado off the map in after a certain period of time, it explodes from what is it called? Extreme contamination or something? I forget what it's called, but it explodes and does contamination or something. The way you remove this tornado is actually really interesting. You don't use a fire beam like you do in A6.
That's good. That's
You do use fire, but it's not a fire beam.
I'm okay.
I have a truck up here.
You use the flamethrower, and it deletes the tornado. It was really awesome. I really like that. So now we've survived the tornado enumeration chakram mechanic. We've deleted the tornado off the map, and we're about to head and enter the final part of the final phase. We're going to be doing a combination of short needles, final punch, final ray, and final beam. Short needles into final punch.
Sure.
Beam afterwards. Stack up, guys. Stack up.
Well, here's the issue, Hacks. The amount of uptime you're losing, and I will highlight this later, the amount of uptime you're losing, because I'm going to be real with you guys. We entertained the idea, I want to say entertain, but we considered the idea of sacrificing being the best way to get through the fight. The major issue we have with sacking, yes, it is a very obvious DPS increase to sack the water and not lose that uptime there. The major issue is we did not feel that a player with weakness was going to be able to survive J-waves. And if not only if you're carrying a weakness for the rest of the fight, if you're also losing that player to J-waves for a large number of J-waves, it becomes very questionable. Teams, as they get more gear, are going to have easier times keeping players alive during J-waves, but we had a very distinct issue of if our black mage is the weakness player carrying weakness through J-waves, he has gotten 0 pieces of loot this tier. He has very little HP. He has a mana ward that he can utilize. However, that's it. So he's going to be dying to one of those J-waves if he's the player with weakness. We did not want to hinge a strategy based on compressed water RNG. So we wanted to focus on doing the mechanic properly, and that's why we chose to do it that way. That's why we felt that we were going to net higher DPS regardless, because we weren't going to be losing a player to J-waves. So we're about to enter J-Storm. This is the big burn of the fight.
Big burn, let's go. We have an LB3, pop it.
Fuck.
LB.
In the
Stack
bubble,
tight,
in the
guys.
bubble, in the
Stack
bubble.
tight in the bubble.
For sure.
I wonder if
If you don't lose that player to J-waves, it's 100% a DPS increase. You're not going to get an argument from me on that.
Should probably
What
just put
if
it on
it's-
as soon as you can, dude. I'm gonna run
But
out in no time.
Put up MP.
yeah, this is how we felt.
MP's up.
You know, the players who are losing
Told you not to
uptime
bubble.
are
Is Vulcan. Can we stack in the back?
really just the 2 melee. The tanks are, you know, we're getting enough. We're getting it's really shitty damage through tomahawks and unmends, but at least we're doing something. Our damage is shit regardless.
Stack up, stack up. Keep it up, stack up.
I do agree that with gear getting to the point that it is, it will net higher return very soon. However, I don't feel at the moment, at the time of this clear, I didn't feel that it was higher DPS. I think in the coming weeks, though, the argument is going to be made that it is higher DPS, yes. Because that period of time... This is really loud, sorry, I'll let it finish. That period of time where you're burning that 10 seconds that you don't normally have access to, if you have a ton of gear, if you're like I-240 and shit, you're gonna be doing so much damage in that period of 10 seconds that you're gonna be cutting off so much of the later part of the fight that yeah, you are gonna come out on top. And that's just really stupid. I'm gonna be blunt with you guys. It's really stupid that it behaves that way. But you know what? Whatever. As raiders, we do it. The designers of the fight give to us. I'm not gonna sit here and punish people for doing it that way. It's stupid that it's designed that way, but you do what's given to you. And right now, this is what they give us. I don't think that we'll be doing it that way, but people are, you know, obviously going to be doing it that way. Other groups. So the J-waves, I didn't really get to talk about. I'll rewind and go through them real quick. We had a cooldown rotation for the
Big burn,
J-waves.
let's go. We have an LB3, pop it.
Fuck.
LB.
In the
Stack
bubble, in
tight,
the
guys.
bubble, in the
Stack
bubble.
tight in the bubble.
For sure.
So we opened the J-wave phase with a soil that we use for the J-storm. I don't think we did we have to soil the J-storm? I'm not sure. Yeah, so we soil the J-storm, and then this soil, I believe, can last for the opening J-wave if timed
Burn,
properly.
Let's go. We have an LB3. Pop
I
it.
think it does.
LB.
We kind of all moved out of
LB.
it. So ideally, we talked about this after the kill. Ideally, we want to stack the soil in the center for the J-Storm, but we weren't very experienced with this phase yet. There's still a lot of like fine tuning you can do from this kill, and we have since then. Stacking in the center is very important. All of this J-Storm and J-Wave, all of this stuff is darkness damage. So you have very limited options for how you're going to deal with it. The way you deal with it is shielding, Storm's Path, Reprisal, Soil. What else? Things like Mantra and Fey Illumination. Those two things are very important. So that's the kit that we're using. Now we need to use that kit in a way that and disable. I mean, we're not running an Astro, so we're going to be spacing out our cooldowns to get us as much DPS as we can. You're actually capable of getting like 65 seconds of J waves if you play it properly. You can actually get up to 75 seconds if your warrior's a god, and I'll highlight what I'm talking about in a second. But I believe our best pull was like 70 seconds worth of J waves.
Guys, stack tight in the
If you mitigate them properly.
bubble.
For sure.
Wonderfully nice.
It's not cheese. I will agree. It's an oversight in design is what it is. The only reason it's possible is because there's no punishing wave in A8. I don't know why there's no punishing wave. If a water player dies, it should cast punishing wave. Bottom line.
Yeah, you should probably just
Whatever,
put
it's
it
fine,
on
it's
as
fine.
soon as you can, dude.
So we opened the phase with the soil on those first J-Waves. Obviously we screwed up and we had to move out of the soil because we mispositioned ourselves. But ideally we're going to use the soil for the first couple J-Waves because what's going to happen is then 30 seconds later we're going to be in the J-Waves that are really hurting and then soil will come back up off cooldown. I just muted it.
Run out.
You can use if you're running 5% Mantra, this is a great place for a 5% Mantra on the earlier waves. You want to make sure that you get your Blood for Bloods and stuff out of the way now before the damage starts to get crazy. Do all your Blood for Bloods and cooldowns and stuff now.
No time
Put
for
up MP.
The damage starts out very low and it's going to ramp up very quickly. J-Waves are happening every 5 seconds.
MP's up.
Mantra?
Told you're not in the bubble.
Is Bubble... Can we stack in the back?
Like I said, we were very inexperienced with this phase at this time of the kill, so our positioning is very bad. Ideally, you want to be stacked behind the boss because there is a positional flank and rear still.
Come on guys, stack. Come on guys, stack. Stack up. Stack
Here's
up.
our second soil.
Keep it up.
Comes off cooldown. At this time, we had our Scholar soil and then just dump. Fey Illumination, Dissipation, and then just go ham with Suckers.
Keep it up. Stack up.
It's also at this time a little bit before this actually around the time of the soil we dropped to 20% mantra.
Truck up.
Keep it going.
Keep it going. 4 seconds.
We're going.
Keep it going. More heals.
Keep us
More
up, keep
heals.
us
More heals.
Shrouds
Everything you
up.
have here.
Shrouds up.
Get ready to LD, boss. Get ready to LD. I'm gonna
LD,
rotate.
everything you have. Everything you have.
We used to joke about what if his rear and flank are spinning with him. That'd be a nightmare.
Wow.
What the hell?
Oh man, finally.
Oh my god.
But yep, that's the fight.
It's actually fucking dead. Oh my god! There's no fucking.
I can't even feel my feet.
Was that a one-shot, boys?
Oh my god. Was that the one swallow?
One
Was
shot.
that the one swallow?
Oh my god, I can fucking Leroy. Let's play BNS right now.
Right.
So I hope you guys
So
enjoyed
excited to
my
play
method
any other
for.
game right now.
I hope you guys enjoyed my method for going through that video. I hope it wasn't too distracting, like me pausing the video all the time. It's just sort of the best way I knew to, approach going through it. But I hope you guys enjoyed watching it and hearing my commentary about it. My feelings toward the sack, I'm not afraid to make very, public and whatnot. But at the same time, the one thing that I want you guys to take away is do what the devs give you, and the devs gave us a shit phase. because they didn't have a punishing water. And that's the last thing I'll ever say about the sack, I think. Hope you guys enjoyed though. If you guys have any other further questions about the fight, feel free to ask.